That's very difficult. Well, you know, I actually have some problems with poetry because I know poetry is either, to me, a bit too much and not especially interesting to me unless it's really good. And when it's really good, I love it to pieces, so it's fantastic. And what happens with a good poem is that it enhances your world, it makes your world bigger. There has to be at least one line or one metaphor or one image that sticks to you and that will forever stick to you. So that means that the normal world is changed forever because you read something in a poem. Besides all those requirements, we also, for young readers, need, I think at least, we need some clear imagery, is that a word? Yeah, imagery. But we also need rhythm and music, and that could be rhyme, and that's not required, but I think rhythm and music, the sound of a poem actually, is something that is really important for children. The movement in a poem, maybe. Yeah. I didn't read that much when I was small, and also we had some books but not many. But having said that, my mother was often singing, so there was a lot of music in the house in that way, and she sang children's songs but also other songs, and I think poetry came to me in songs mostly. Also, when I was a little bit older, like being 10 or 11, started listening to songs, started listening to the lyrics, starting learning them by heart, or actually that just happened. And also I think, for instance, for my own writing, the most influential poem was, now you're probably gonna laugh, but was the lyrics of a song by ABBA, Waterloo. I really started thinking a lot, that was when I was 10, so I thought a lot about that. The lines from that song, for instance, the history book on the shelf is always repeating itself. That's such a strange line. I know history is repeating itself, but the history book is repeating itself. I've been thinking for that for 40 years now. I actually only write poetry because it came from music, also for me. So when I was younger, I think I didn't especially want to be a writer. I didn't even think about it. I had no idea that you could be a writer or that I could be a writer. I wanted to be a teacher, but actually I wanted to be a song lyrics writer. So because of that song that I liked, I wanted to try that myself, and I did. So my first poems were always written to melodies of songs that I liked. So I just threw away the original lyrics and put something in Dutch in its place. And there I really started to doing that. And then when I was a teacher, I got a children's choir. So we made a choir at my school. I was the conductor, and sometimes I made new texts for the songs. So that's how it started. Many of those first texts have become poems and were in my first poetry volume. I think the ideas for poetry can be as the ideas for prose anywhere. So in my best days, I'm as open-minded as I can be, so I try to relate everything that I see or read or hear to maybe an idea for a poem or an idea for a book that I already have in my head. Another inspirational thing is movement, like really walking or biking, having some rhythm in that what I do, or even in the gym. Sometimes I really tell myself, okay, I'm gonna walk from my house to the city center, which is 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes I must have at least 1 or 2 lines, and it often works. Sometimes the book starts in a different way, so this didn't start in the way I was just telling. For that book, I got the illustrations. They were already there. They were made for a calendar, actually, in Germany. So my publishing house just said, okay, you like sports and you like poetry, and you like animals, so we would like to have a book of poems that go together with the illustrations of Wolf. So I just went to a cafe every day. I think I had a month or 6 weeks to write the whole thing. So I went to a cafe every day, spread out all the pictures that I had, the copies, and tried to find something. Yeah. And it was the right moment because there all kinds of ideas in that book came from other discussions I had with a friend who was an athlete, or came from the talks that I had to football players. I made some books about football. So all kinds of other books came together in this one. I would say for me it's easier to write poetry, and that's just because I've been doing it for so long. But nothing is easy. I don't know. No, it's never easy. Because it has to be new, and I think writing is really difficult, actually, whether it's prose or poetry. Again, I think it's the melody, and you know, there are not many kids that would tell you when you go to school. There are not many young kids when you tell them you're going to do something with poetry, they will not say, "Oh, poetry." That is a grown-up response or an older kid's response, and that is because they have the wrong idea. And the wrong idea is, oh, poetry is always very serious. It's always very difficult. For children, poetry is playing, and language play and musical play, and that's what it should be. So I think if there is a connection between the poetry and something that has to do with music or games or movement, then it's very easy for them to accept. It's very easy to go along. Yeah. It has been suffering. I think the last 10 years there were not many poetry volumes. That was just because of the financial crisis and of we always have to take the hurdle of grown-ups buying poetry for children. I really believe that if you would only trust it to children, that they would buy a poetry volume just as much as another book, as long as it looks funny or thrilling. So, but we have this prejudice of older people. Oh, when I start doing poetry with young kids, that's really difficult. We really have to know everything about it first ourselves, and then we can do it, which is not true. So, but it is changing a little bit. There were some initiatives, like, for instance, we got a new prize, a new award for children's poetry, and it has a beautiful name. The award is called the Golden Poetry Medal. Well, everyone wants to have a golden poetry medal, so that works, and that takes poetry really seriously. It's a biannual award. There have been some like magazines or online magazines, so it's slowly starting. And I think this year, so 2017, has 3 times as many poetry volumes coming out as last year. So it's getting better. That's a fantastic volume. It's called Dag Rots in Dutch, which means goodbye rock, which is kind of enigmatic. It's written by Kees Spiering, who is a poet both for grown-ups and young adults, you could say. And this is actually it's about the loss of a love, and the poems are heartfelt and very sad, but also very imaginative. And he wrote it. I know him personally. He wrote it because of a love that he lost, and Rock was the nickname of the girl that was gone. That dumped him. And but there's, for instance, one fantastic poem about the value of words, because just before they broke up, she promised him lots of things, like, "I will always be with you, my forever is with you." That's what she said, literally. And then she broke up. So what is the value of words? And that line, that poem starts with, your word was like a part of a tree that I thought was strong enough, but then it broke. Yeah, it was like a branch that I thought, this will work, I can be on this branch, but then it fell down. It's a beautiful, the whole volume is beautiful and very heartfelt. And it shows that there are not many differences between grown-ups and young children. You can write about your own things and still it can be fit for teenagers in this case. Well, I think it's fantastic that this is the subject of a whole festival, poetry for young kids. And also, we don't often think of this, but the meeting of poets of different parts of the world who are all trying to do something that is similar is very important. Just as any literature festival, it has like a hidden importance. Not just that audiences meet the poets or writers, but also the poets meet the poets and talk about what they do. And that is, I think that has almost never happened in the world with children's poets. I think, I don't know, maybe in 1814. No, I really don't know. So I'm looking forward to talk to the others a lot, yeah.